So many times we think it has to be all or nothing, win or lose, go big or go home. But there are times when doing one thing instead of everything can change something. Dentist Steve Marsh is here to tell us why even one small change can make a big difference in your smile. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
My pleasure, Armin.
So you've shown us great, big, beautiful smile makeovers over the years, but now you're going to tell us that less sometimes can be more.
Yeah, and, you know, it's an interesting thing. Not everything has to be a big makeover, and I think dentists are becoming much more responsive to our patients. Sometimes people, whether it's time, a function of work, it can be a financial issue, they say, listen, what else can you do, but here's how much I have to spend, or I'd like to do a little minor work. What can we do, or I have an event coming up? And so we very much concentrate now on also bringing to the fore what we can do in a small way to make a huge change.
So what kinds of little things are we talking about?
Well, the first thing is whitening, and whitening can make a huge difference in our viewers, people who have had coffee and tea and stain, and we have some pictures to help show it. This is a patient who came to me, and she was actually an athlete and had worn her teeth down. Her teeth had turned gray. You can see they were irregular. And with her, we just did some whitening up first and made a huge change. And actually, Armin, she was inspired later on to do some porcelain veneers and a gum lift to give her a beautiful smile. But again, we can do things in stages.
What's this?
This is interesting. I just took care of this patient this week, as a matter of fact. She's a retired teacher. She's now a grandmother. And said, you know, I've taken care of everybody in my family. My kids are grown now. What can we do? And she said, Steve, I just want to do a few things. And so this is what we did. We just did some reshaping, Armin, and a little bonding. Literally, in about 45 minutes, we made this huge change by leveling off her lower teeth, doing a little adjustment on the upper. And that could be the last thing we do for her. She may come back and say, what else can we do? So we're glad to work in that manner.
Sometimes people aren't even aware that they have these relatively simple options.
Yeah, and that's one of our jobs, is to present those options. I mentioned sometimes people have a function. This woman had a big family function within 6 weeks of when she came into me. We talked, ideally you could do orthodontia, but again we were focusing on a few things. She had heard about veneers, and we actually did some reshaping, and that's only 4 porcelain veneers to close that space that she had lived with for 30 years.
Wow.
This is an interesting one. Not a big change. Again, we're focusing on the smaller changes. This is actually one of my staff members. And she had been bothered by the spaces between her teeth, and we talked about it, and she said, Dr. Marsh, what would you suggest, veneers or crowns? And I said, you know, I think we can do it with just some hand bonding. And so we had some time one afternoon, and we took about an hour and closed those spaces. It wasn't just unattractive, Armin, but she would get food caught, and she'd say she'd be with people, get some spinach caught between her teeth, and that's what she was left with.
And
so
that
again,
took just an hour?
Just an hour of our time. And
wow.
We have wonderful materials now, and that enables us to make some of these changes.
What if we had some work done in the past, but now it just doesn't look so good anymore?
Well, today we can remake those, for example, crowns or old fillings. Again, we don't use any silver or metal in my practice, so oftentimes we'll do crowns, all porcelain, no metal. And this is a patient of mine who came to me about 20 years ago, and like the earlier patient that I talked about, she's now in her 70s. She's still active, plays tennis, swims almost every day. Hated the way her smile looked. That was dentistry done a long time ago with porcelain on top of metal crowns. And she said, "What? I've seen your stuff. What else can you do?" And we said, we can do that now in all porcelain. We remove those crowns. Everybody thinks it's very difficult, but fortunately you can separate them, and they come off very easily with no damage to the tooth. And then we planned it out, we waxed it up, and then we did this remake, if you will. And this was a little bit more substantial. And one last case that I think, to me, speaks loads of what we're talking about. Here's somebody who came into my office, Armin, to do some maintenance work. And he came in and he saw some of our pictures on the wall. He said, "I've hated this." He's in his mid-50s. He said, "What can we do?" And I did some reshaping on the bottom. We came up and did 6 porcelain veneers. So we didn't do a full remake, but imagine his surprise when we went from that to that. And he said, "I absolutely love my teeth, and I can't imagine having gone this. I waited too long." And I said, "No, you waited till the techniques and materials are right." So we were able to do it in a minimal way to get a maximum result.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Very good. Sometimes it's the little things that count, and when it comes to your smile, you can count Dr. Marsh to help you see a big difference. To find out more, give Steve a call. His number's up next.
See what Dr. Stephen Marsh can do for your smile by calling 440-461-1003 or visit www.clevelandsmiles.com. Next, gearing up for a dialogue about driving.